Brian O'Driscoll on Off the Ball.
With Vodafone, official sponsors of the Irish rugby team. Team of us. Everyone in.
All right, let's turn our attention to the World Cup final. I'm delighted to say Brian O'Driscoll is with us. Brian, how you doing?
Good evening, Ger. All right?
Yeah, you've been in Japan for quite a while now. How have you? I haven't actually talked to you about your experience of it. What's it been like?
It's been good, yeah. I've been here like 2.5 weeks. It's been good. I think this week has dragged a little bit because, when you go semi-finals and then into third, fourth place playoff, I didn't have a huge amount on this week, and I probably should have made a bit better use of my time getting out of Tokyo, but alas, I procrastinated on that stuff and nothing transpired. So the height of my week was the ITV rap party on Wednesday. I did go to an art exhibition on Monday, and he did get a little bit of culture, which was really good. But it's been trying to avoid ex-players that seem to have an ability to go night for night that I don't possess. Yeah.
In Tokyo, it's the type of city where you can just keep going all night as well. What did you make of the city? Because it's kind of overwhelming at the start.
Yeah, it is. Everyone talks about the cultural differential between it and anything else, and it's pretty stark and immediately. But people spoke or certainly attempted to speak English an awful lot more than I'd anticipated, and obviously they're getting themselves ready for the Olympics next year. We're kind of a trial run for that, so there's a lot more signage than I think there had been previous years. The underground system is absolutely brilliant. It is faultless, very, very easy to navigate around. So I've been on that a lot. I've been just getting my tips from Brian Habana, who is the ultimate tourist. He seems to have literally covered every square inch of Tokyo and done everything imaginable. He's kind of Keane Healy-esque in his appetite for ticking things off his to-do list, and doesn't seem to need any sleep whatsoever. So he kind of given me a couple of pointers. I've eaten in some terrific restaurants. The sushi here is everything that you anticipate it to be. Massively varying in price. You can get excellent sushi for a tenner. You can also be charged 100 quid for equally excellent sushi. So you just have to be a little bit careful on that stuff.
Yeah.
No, it's been a really good experience, and I think it's a bit trickier when you don't have your team to support after a couple of days. And I think you don't feel at a loose end, but watching Wales and New Zealand tonight in the third, fourth place playoff, it could, a year earlier that could easily have been Ireland, or we could, God forbid, we could have even been cheering them on tomorrow. Whereas when they're gone, the Monday after you arrive, you're commenting on other teams. I guess as much as you're trying to be professional, you don't have the same passion as supporting your own.
Yeah, we're observers at the Lifestridge pageant as opposed to actually partaking in the great feast that's happening right there. I did want to ask you about any kind of general trends that you've noticed over this World Cup, because in the past there's been a bit of an overreaction sometimes to what happens in the World Cup. I think 4 years ago, everybody slimmed down in the aftermath of watching the All Blacks slim down over the previous 4-year cycle. 4 years before that, everybody was bulking up. Is there anything that's happened this time that's different from what we would have seen in the previous 4 years? Do you expect any significant changes to how teams approach rugby in the future?
I think defences have really copped on again and become very organised, become miserly. I don't know what the stats are on the number of tries, but I do know that the two finalists, I think, have only conceded 4 tries each in the tournament. And I know they always talk about trophies are won on defence, so that certainly seems to be the case in their particular situations. I think the quality of passing, irrespective of the number on your jersey, has improved over the course of the last 4 years, driven on by the All Blacks. Particularly you look at their tight five, Retallick and Whitelock, they were showing skills that I think other teams didn't possess. And the reality was, if you want to play an 80-minute performance that's worthy of winning the William Webb Ellis, that you need to have a skill set in everyone, not in your starting 15, but in your 23 and your extended 31-man squad. So I think that has improved, although there are some teams still ahead of the pack. So off the top of my head, those things, but I think the intensity has picked up, the physicality has picked up in the game. I'm gone from it 5 years now, and it feels again with each year that there's another evolution of physicality in the game and confrontation and yeah, and I suppose I look on somewhat relieved that I don't have to be part of that because it's pretty brutal.
This is definitely going to be, I think in retrospect, a hinge point for the height of the tackle and for the global understanding of how the height of the tackle needs to come down. That will actually have a change in how teams train, how they prepare for games, and that skill set too, because there will be a greater onus on teams being able to keep the ball alive and to pass out of the tackle.
Yeah, and I think what you have to be careful or cognizant of doing is making sure that you evolve with those rule changes immediately and you try and stay ahead of the curve, and that comes with your head coach thinking about maximizing your ability as well. The reality is, and I spoke about it before in the show, I think we did get a little bit of a lesson in passing in that quarter final, and I think it's something that we need to look back at and from a 10 or 15 year plan, where I felt as though we were schooled in a particular part of the game that will stunt our ability to play a brand that maybe a load of our players would like to play. I think we've got to be slightly bigger risk takers, but also, we talk about rugby being a game for everyone. I think it's going to become all the more so a game for everyone. The big collision is going to be reduced because of the red cards that we've seen so far, and so you're going to see less and less high impacts of with the possibility of teams being reduced to 14. What does that mean? It brings in smaller players like Cheslin Colby and guys that maybe have gone out of vogue in the last few seasons, and we're going to look at the agility and the footwork of players and skill levels increasing again, and offloading being a big part of the game going forward. And I think that there's lots of good in that, because it did feel as though it got a game for big people. I think now, it's going to be, you're going to see smaller, faster, nippier wingers, and I think that will be great for just broadening our horizons and giving us an ability to see lots of different skill sets.
I remember you talking about before when Joe Schmidt came into Leinster. He said that he wanted to make you the best passing team in Europe, and the response was like, well, what does that even mean? But then after a period of time, you're like, I get it now. Did we go away from that a little bit? Is that something that we just forgot to practice on, and it's really just about going back to first principles and making sure that that skill set is the thing that everybody works on all the time?
Yeah, like if you look back to our great performances, we were very good passers. We still are. We haven't turned into bad passers overnight. But I do think that, in certain positions we're very good passers, but in other positions that we have a lot of work to do. And it's not even that we're not. Maybe, if you were asked, you could throw a 10 or 15 metre pass. That's one thing when you're asked. But in a pressurised situation, when the defender's charging onto you, can you catch and give a pass of 3, 4, 5 metres, the way New Zealand showed the way in our quarter final? And the question is, or the answer to that is, I don't know if all of our team can do that. We have certain guys in key positions, and you look at the back row battle, I don't think we look as though we're connecting the pack to our back line as often as you would hope. I don't feel as though we've gotten enough offloads away to change the point of contact there. So I think that is definitely a key area that we can look to continue to build on our skill set. And I think, other players are going to start putting their hands up now that are able to play a game that whatever style Andy Farrell wants to incorporate.
You've been out there with the ITV crew. Are they very confident ahead of the final that England are going to get this done against South Africa? No, they're not. Like they were confident, obviously, after the semi-final, because that was the big one, and particularly after seeing the manner of the second semi-final. And they were hopeful early on in the week, and I think, like all things, the closer you get to the game, the realisation that it'll be a bit of an arm wrestle. And you look at all the stats, South Africa have only conceded 20 points once this year, and that was against New Zealand in the World Cup. So it's going to be, I feel, a relatively low-scoring
really hard physical match as you would anticipate. South Africa aren't going to want to play a game that doesn't suit them, so they're going to try and absolutely strangle England. It's whether they can get the platform to be able to hurt them the way they feel they can. And I think the game needs an early try from England. We've seen so many from them this year. I think they've got a phenomenal record of scoring in the first 10 minutes in 9 of their test matches. So, and some, we saw 90 seconds against us, 90 seconds against New Zealand, and that just gets them into their groove. So I think the game needs that, because if we go back to just kick contest, it's just a terrible platform to show the best of our game. And that's why I think a lot more people have probably turned to maybe cheering on England where ordinarily they never would, is because they don't want to see South Africa winning in that style.
It's a bit weird that in the game against Wales, when South Africa went wide and used their own passing ability and got the ball to the centres and moved it to the wings, they actually look really dangerous. And I don't know if they feel like they can only do that when they've already broken your spirit physically over the course of the first 74, 75 minutes. But they do have talented backs. It's just that there's this weird fear of using them for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Dialande and Am are good, hard, ball-carrying centres. They're not great distributors. Pollard's a very nice passer of the ball. He plays off the line a little bit. He's not like a Ford or a Farrell or a Johnny Sexton where he takes it to the line and can still whip those passes, or a Finn Russell. He's not. But he is a good passer of the ball. But they know what their strength is. That's why they've got an ability to have 14 forwards playing over the course of a game. To be able to come and change your whole tight five, it's like, right, where we've come from in the last year and a half, yes, we'll be able to evolve our game on from here in time, but we've done brilliantly to get to a World Cup final playing this brand. Why would we move away from it at this juncture? I think the one change in that is that we saw what Cheslin Colby is capable of doing on his own. He doesn't need a huge amount to be created for him. He can do it for himself. So I'm excited about seeing him back in the South African back three. He was magical against New Zealand, carried for a huge amount of meters. So England will have to be careful of not kicking loosely to him, but I don't feel as though South Africa are necessarily going to create a huge amount for him. He might have to go out and do it himself.
The point you made about England scoring early, it's really well made, and they have been devastating when they've managed to do it. It would be very interesting to see what happens to that team if they don't have an early lead, and if they're actually chasing the game. In the South Africa-New Zealand game at the start of the World Cup, South Africa took an early lead, and obviously New Zealand did have that ability to rattle off 2 quick tries in a couple of minutes, and England probably do have the same ability with the wingers that they have and the pace that they have in the team. But it's not a situation that this team has been in recently where they've been behind. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens if that does happen.
Yeah, because one thing I would say about England in that semi-final, they didn't look as though, of course they were feeling pressure, but they never looked as though they were feeling pressure, whereas the All Blacks looked the ones that were tight and looked stressful, and they were animated in their conversations. I've never seen Beauden Barrett looking stressed on the pitch. He's always got a smile on his face, but he looked as though he didn't have the answers. And I think England haven't had to revert to that or reverting back to tight or tightened up because things haven't gone for them. They've managed to work their way into games and get scores, and they've had the luxury of that because of their big ball carriers and because guys have been pulling the strings at the right time. So I just feel there's a real experience in this English team littered throughout. It's the bone of that Saracens team. Someone in every key position in the front row, second row, back row, all Saris, Toji, George and Vunipola, and then Farrell at 12 and Daly at full back. Right, look at that. That's the spine of a team that has huge confidence from the way that they've been playing and the victories that they've had over the last couple of seasons. And I think that has infiltrated their international setup, along with what Eddie Jones has instilled in them and the confidence that he's given them to go out and play. And you throw in some other big ball carriers and that, they've got it's such a potent combination. So I don't know. I don't want to see tomorrow England, struggling, because it'll make for a terrible game. I do want a good game, and I think you need South Africa to have their hand forced a little bit and experiment a little bit more rather than chasing the aim with kick contest. That won't happen. So that's why I'm encouraging another early score from England.
Rugby is a bit of a mad sport when you think about how the clamour for Eddie Jones to be fired was real about 14 months ago. And you could see that it would have made sense at that point because it looked like everything had completely disappeared, that the big plan that he had been completely wrong and they were in disarray. And then they put together a few nice results. And even in the Six Nations, there was still some kinks that you're thinking, geez, I don't know if Eddie Jones has this. I don't know if he's got it right. And here we are, they put in the greatest performance that we can remember from them in the semi-final against a brilliant All Black team. What happened? How did he fix it?
And listen, there's a big slice of luck that comes with these things. I tell you what they have, and not many people have talked about it. They've had a huge slice of luck in this World Cup with having that French game called a 0-0 draw and getting 2 points from that, because we talked before the World Cup about their run-in going Argentina, France, quarter-final against Australia, New Zealand, and then whoever came out the other side of the draw. So imagine those 5 test matches in a row, but to get that break from France, not have to risk Billy Vunipola, who was an injury concern around then. They got 10 days together to build up for that quarter-final against Australia. So I think that was a big slice of luck over the course of the last 6 weeks. Now, they've made their own luck as well because they've shown real toughness. They showed one of the most complete performances against any All Black team we've ever seen. But you do need a helping hand along the way. And yeah, you're right. 18 months ago, was it the third test over in South Africa? There was talk if he lost that would have been 5 losses in a row and Eddie was gone. But all of a sudden, you just have to survive those things as coaches. You have highs and lows, peaks and troughs as any coach, and particularly in the English job, they're probably sharpening their knives a little bit earlier, particularly when an Australian's coming in for the first time to do it. They couldn't wait to get him out at one point. But now, the English media absolutely loves him. He gives them these nuggets, these sound bites that to absolutely die for, and he writes their columns for them. So it's a fine line between genius and madness, and he's he definitely rides that line an awful lot. He's gotten things wrong, but he's good value at the same time. So whatever he's done, he's managed to just keep that tipping point from going over the edge, because on another day we'd hear about all the issues that have been over the course of the last 6 weeks, and I'm sure they've been a plenty. But we'll never hear about them if there's a World Cup win. Yeah.
Is there going to be a World Cup win? Is that ultimately your prediction?
Yeah, I think they will. I think they'll get it done. I think it'll be a tight game, a relatively low-scoring tight game. You don't see World Cups, teams getting up into the 30 points very often. I think it's only twice happened twice by New Zealand in the first and the most recent World Cup final. So I think it'll be low enough scoring, but I think England will manage to get it done. I saw Johnny Wilkinson was in camp today doing a drop goal clinic with Owen Farrell, which I thought was very interesting. So maybe it'll come down to that, but
that's mad, isn't it? So he's there for work.
He's done a bit of work with them.
Right.
Johnny's done a bit of work with them. He kind of does a bit of mentoring, but to get them in. I'm not sure. I haven't seen or heard of him being in for the rest of the time that he's been here. But to get in the day before a World Cup final, I think, inspiration or creating a lack of clarity, who knows? But if there's a drop goal that goes over and is the difference between the teams tomorrow, we know who's going to be lauded for it.
Oh yeah, wow, that is interesting. Right, Brian, great stuff. Thanks a million for joining us, and enjoy the rest of the sushi.
Yeah, see you next week.
That's Brian O'Driscoll on his way home from Japan after the Rugby World Cup final. Our rugby coverage is brought to you by Vodafone, team of us, everyone in, and of course we'll have more analysis and rolling reaction as soon as that game is over. Enjoy it wherever you're watching it. We'll see you soon. Good luck.
Brian O'Driscoll on Off the Ball.
With Vodafone, official sponsors of the Irish rugby team. Team of us, everyone in.